Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, it is Brian Kaz here. We'll get going in just about 30 seconds or so. For some reason, this won't let me share my screen. I just need to change myself to the presenter here. All right, there we go. All better. All right, so once again, welcome to the webinar here. This is Automated Ads training number 3, and on this one, we'll basically talk about tips and tricks with basically ads and ad creatives, as well as we'll walk you through and actually give you some templates as well. So I'll kind of show off some of the templates as I do like the live demo. We'll probably use a free resource. And then once we post the recording up, we'll actually put the links into the templates and all that right there. So you won't have to worry about writing down anything or taking screenshots or anything like that, because we'll have it all available to you shortly, within a day, once the replay is posted. So without further ado, we can get the show on the road here. So once again, this is all about, this call right here, all about basically tips and tricks with how to not only create ads, but make them work well. And we'll also give you some templates to help with that. And as you probably know, my name is Brian Kaz. I'm also joined by my friend and business partner, Sean Casey, who you might hear from a little bit later. So this is number 3 of the 4 training series. On the first one, basically covered the basics of how to set up and run a Facebook ad for those that are new, as well as we basically talked about the 4 different types of ads and strategies you can do. And that's useful stuff to look at, even if you're somewhat experienced, because there's different kinds of methods that can work better or worse in different cases. And later on today, I'll show off a couple of those different types that can work really, really well, especially in getting like cheap leads and sales and such. And we'll basically talk a bit more about that later as well. But we have a more extensive training on the 4 different types on the first call. On the second call, we basically covered how to use automated ads to sell Facebook ad management, and also how to manage ads as a whole. On the third training, which is right here, we'll basically cover more tips and tricks with basically ads and ad creatives, as well as basically provide you with some templates based on our best ads that you can use and basically edit as you wish. Of course, you'll want to basically edit it to fit, you know, your own offers and, you know, basically tweak it a bit. But I find sometimes if you have like a rough template to start with, you know, it helps a great deal. At least it helps me out. So hopefully it will help you out as well. And once again, we will post up a link to those templates right when we post a replay of this call up. So usually either like later today or by tomorrow morning at the latest, you'll have access to that in the members area. The 4th training, which will be next week, will basically cover how to get more money from any buyer, as well as give you free software to help you plan out your business funnels even better and to maximize your profits. And this is a call that, you know, or I should say next week's call. The topic there basically covers, regardless if you're doing Facebook ads or basically anything at all, you can expand your sales a great deal regardless of where your buyers come from. Or even if you don't get any new buyers, it'll also show you how to expand sales of just your existing buyers. So next week will be a very important call that I think can make a major difference in the amount of profits that you can make. And the software is one of my favorite little tools that we have that really can open your eyes to the amount of money that you're leaving on, you know, the table, as well as how to easily fix that and reach your goals. So that's a very exciting call that I'm looking forward to. And to give you an idea, one guy I know who basically took our advice that I'll basically give you next week. He actually used it to increase his sales nearly 50% without actually doing barely anything. So he barely did any work. This was maybe like a half hour of planning, a few minor tweaks to his business, and he got, you know, easily a 50% increase almost instantly. And he admitted that if he probably spent a little more time on it, he could have, you know, easily more than doubled that, just with a few extra tweaks, which is what he's actually working on right now. So we'll basically talk more about that next week. I think you guys will really enjoy that. So make sure to basically check us out then as well. And keep in mind that all of these are on top of the extra trainings that we'll be releasing over time. You know, more tutorials as we add more features, so on and so forth. This is just kind of to give you like a jump start. If you have any questions, suggestions, feature requests, or so on and so forth, we want to hear from you. So make sure to send us an email at support@firstratesupport.com. So any suggestions or anything you need help with or anything at all, again, feel free to reach out to us there. And this is just a brief list of some new and upcoming features. Some of these are actually live now, and some will be probably within like a week or, you know, 2 or less. Some are actually done. We're just actually testing them to make sure everything's all fine. One is easier day parting. So right now you can do day parting, which is basically where you can run ads only on certain days or certain times of days and stuff like that, even with the lifetime budget, which Facebook by itself does normally not allow you to do unless you basically do it in a roundabout way. With this makes much easier. But we basically dumbed it down to actually make it like insanely easy to do. So we'll have that out soon. We also recently added a maximum budget option. So we heard some feedback that some of you were like concerned that you might go over budget, like, you know, if you have a rule where you're like increasing your budget or duplicating good ad sets and stuff like that, you were concerned that you might go over budget a bit fast. So we added a feature, it's called the maximum budget option, where it will basically stop a rule from taking place if you go over budget. So you'll never have to worry about that right there. And it will just alert you saying, hey, you know, we didn't do this next step because you didn't want to go over this budget. We also have more analytics and more options in the works as well. So on the reports and the analysis, we're basically adding more stuff right there, which should be pretty neat, that we'll have out very soon. It will add even more info and give you more stuff to basically help you have the best ads possible. And another feature that we're working on are a handful of ad editing options, which will make it super easy to like make lots of edits on the fly. So like if you have like, let's say 100 ads, you won't have to do stuff one by one, or there's like major changes that you can make all at once in a matter of seconds instead of basically hours. So that's kind of a cool thing right there that we'll basically announce once that's out in the near future. But yeah, just thought we'd let you know. And as always, if there's any features or stuff that you'd like to see, again, just let us know, and we'll definitely try to make those happen. Now, here's a question for you all that you can feel free to write in the chat box. The question is, what's the biggest thing holding you back right now from starting or expanding your Facebook ads? So if you want to take maybe 30 seconds or so to write a response right there, will basically help us either maybe develop some new features or maybe do some new training or something, kind of, you know, help you guys out. So what's the biggest thing holding you back from starting or expanding your Facebook ads? So I'll give you guys a few moments to write your responses there, and of course it's greatly appreciated. We always love the feedback there, so we can try to make this essentially a cooler and better software tool for you guys. Last question right here. What is your biggest business need currently, regardless if it has to do with Facebook ads or not? So what is your biggest business need right now? So what is it that's holding you back? What is it that you need the most? What is it you most need the help with anything at all in regards to your business? If you could write your response, take maybe 30 seconds or so to do that, that would be really awesome. And again, that just kind of helps us essentially gear the stuff, you know, essentially the features and the training and stuff, to see how we can best help you. So let us know that. All right, so feel free to continue writing your responses as I jump on into the training here. So one of the most overlooked things when it comes to Facebook ads, or really any ad, are how to basically create compelling ads and offers, as well as how to best target your best prospects. That's why we'll first share some ad targeting tips with you, but then we'll dive into what we think is one of the most important aspects, and that's how to create good and compelling ads. And again, this doesn't have to be hard. A lot of times people think almost too much on them, but you definitely want to do a good job on these. And that's why we made some templates, and we'll do some actual examples and demos and stuff in just a bit to help you out here. So moving on to how to best target your prospects on Facebook. If you already have existing clients, you absolutely need to upload those customers into Facebook and create a lookalike audience that you'll want to set to 1% usually. So when you create a lookalike audience in Facebook, basically what they do is you upload, like a list or something like that, of your leads or your buyers, and Facebook says, hey, I'm going to try to find a bunch of other people that kind of look like these guys right here. And they do a pretty good job of that right there. And when you set it to like 1%, that basically means they take the closest matches right there. The larger the percentage, the more kind of broad it goes, so it can oftentimes be less targeted. So I usually stick to that as a default. In many cases, you'll want to go basically after just the lookalike audience without any other basically additional targeting. Now, there are exceptions. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have a bunch of buyers, okay? And you create a lookalike audience based upon that. The more extra targeting you have, like if you say, hey, like I'm selling, I don't know, golf balls, and you try to target like everyone that likes golf, everyone that likes golf clubs, everyone that likes all this stuff, the more you target, the more you narrow down your audience, and the more likely you are to pay a lot more for all those clicks. And on top of that, you're also like assuming that all of your buyers say that they like, golfing, even though, on, let's say a lookalike, like let's say you have, 100 guys that have bought a golf course from you, or golf balls, or whatever it might be. Facebook looks at all that data and says, hey, these 100 guys tend to have this stuff in common right here. So they look at tons and tons of things, and they'll narrow it down and say, hey, there's a bunch of things that these guys have, in common. Golfing might be one, but it also might look at a bunch of other things that can basically get you a larger crowd or a larger audience that are more likely to be buyers. So that's what's very, very important right there. Like oftentimes people tend to try too hard, like they try to have like a super narrow audience, and that oftentimes just increases the clicks even more. So I try to go more essentially broad, but focus on the lookalikes. Now, having said that, once I have a lookalike, I still do often test like, a lookalike, audience plus, sometimes like that they might have like one or two broad interests, but I try not to go too narrow in most of the cases. There are always exceptions to that right there. But typically that's the way that you would want to start, especially if you have like a broad and like super appealing offer. The more broad you go, usually the cheaper clicks and the better success you'll have, because you're competing over a lot less, or a lot less of everyone else out there. If you have no existing leads or sales currently, which I know, obviously if you're new, you might not have any. You can do some basic interest targeting to start with. So like if, you're going after golfers, you absolutely could say, hey, basically target those who like golf, or hey, target those that like all these things associated with golf, or maybe Tiger Woods, or something to that extent right there. But you'll absolutely want to quickly move to basically test lookalikes for your leads first and later sales. So you want to have an offer where you have like like an opt-in page or landing page first, just to get a lot of cheap leads first. Because once you have like 50 or more actions, like leads, it can create a decent lookalike based upon that. If you have a lot more, like, you know, hundreds or thousands, it gets even better as time goes on right there. So unless you have a massive budget, you probably won't get a lot of sales initially, but you can probably get a lot of leads fast. So you could create a lookalike based upon those leads. Then once you have that, optimize for sales and create a lookalike based upon the sales as time goes on. Because ultimately, most of you probably care more about the sales than the leads. And oftentimes, the more broad you go, the cheaper the clicks, leads, and sales you'll often get as a result. And one of the templates that I'll share with you in just a bit can help you go very, very broad and get super, super cheap leads and clicks and all that, while still being able to get some sales. I'll share what that is in just a bit right here. If you do end up doing, you know, interest targeting, like those who like golf or stuff like that, think of how to go more broad instead of narrow. Now, here's like a couple examples. So, you know, let's say you want to target people that are more likely to be looking to invest money, let's say, okay, like a retirement account. You know, if you were to target like all those that like certain retirement news sites and stuff like that, you know, you certainly can do that to start with, but you might find the competition might be really, really high because it's a super narrow, or not super narrow, but it's a more narrow, is essentially interest. But what you might find is like, hey, maybe there's some more broad demographics out there that are more likely to be like, you know, investors that are more likely to have money. Like you might find that, hey, maybe people over the age of 50 or the people over the age of 60 might be more likely to have a larger sum of money and be more into investment and retirement stuff than people who are like 30, which, you know, probably would be the case, I'm guessing there. And you might also find that, hey, you know, on top of that, maybe Republicans are more likely than Democrats to be more into that stuff. Now, I'm not trying to go political or anything like that, but I'm saying there's definitely like trends on both sides where you might find like, hey, maybe older Republicans are more likely to be, you know, into investment stuff, but maybe a certain age group on the Democrat side is more likely to be into something completely different. And when you do that, you know, you have to basically realize that if you're going into like, let's say, and you know, you're trying to target those that like investing, you know, you'll find that only a fraction of those guys will actually like an investment page on Facebook. So the problem is, like, if you go after that small fraction right there, you're leaving the larger amount of people on the table. Whereas if you know the larger demographic, like you know, hey, typically those that like this tend to be this or that. You know, you can start to slowly target a much broader group and get basically cheaper clicks as a result of that right there. So definitely try to think like how you could possibly expand you know, that out right there. And you might find the same thing, like, let's say you're going after, I don't know, gardening, okay? You could definitely target people who like gardening to start with, but you know, that may or may not be a competitive niche with lots of gardening offers. That's probably not super competitive compared to some others. But what you could also say is, hey, you know, after you know, you examine, you know, your audience a bit more, you might say, hey, you know, what might be a gardener? You can look at, you know, your data through automated ads, and it might say, hey, in this case, maybe older women seem to be more likely to be your leads and your buyers. Then you might say, oh, well, you know, maybe I should try to target basically more broadly, but with older women. You know, maybe there's a difference between like Republicans and Democrats, or maybe there's like a difference between those that are in like retirement age versus not, and like all sorts of things like that, where you can basically go a lot more broad instead of narrow. And I find that tends to work really well. Years back, that wasn't always the case. Years back, when it was far less competitive and lookalikes weren't around or didn't work as well, you definitely could get away with simple targeting, but that's not really the case now. Now, after you have a decent amount of data, and by data I mean like leads, sales, and so forth, you can then try to go back and make adjustments to your ad sets to better target your prospects. And what I mean is, like, once you have some sales and stuff, you can go back and see, hey, what are the ages? What are the genders? Where are they buying from? Maybe see if there's anything else that they have in common. You can start to do some neat stuff there, and you can start to create lookalikes based upon that, and Facebook can help you target even more. Now, you also want to make sure that you analyze data of a lead versus a sale, because they're completely different, as there can be major differences. So let's say you have 1,000 leads and 50 sales, and you might find that, hey, most of your leads are, I'm just making this up here. Let's say most of your leads are men between the ages of 35 and 45. But you might find that most of the buyers might be women over the age of 50. So a completely different gender, a completely different age, just because maybe those that are more likely to buy might be one versus those that are more likely to just sign up to be a free lead. And a lot of times a mistake I see is people oftentimes say, hey, most of the people or most of the clicks I have, or most of the leads I have, are men between the age of 35 and 45, so let's only target those. And they ignore the data of the buyers that say, hey, well, wait, even though your leads are maybe more expensive in that older crowd, maybe the sales are basically cheaper. So you want to make sure that you know what you're trying to get, whether it be leads or sales, and you basically target appropriately. And I've seen this with a lot of niches that I'm in. Oftentimes the leads will look completely different than what the sales do in terms of the data. Now, for impulse buying prices, which is what I basically say is essentially $20 or less is more of like an impulse buy. Like that basically means like you don't really think much, you don't do a lot of research on it. Like if I were to offer you something for like $5, a lot of you probably wouldn't spend like weeks thinking about if you should invest $5. I'm sure there's probably a couple that might, but most people are like, it's $5, $10, whatever. It's not worth their time to think about it for weeks. But if I'm asking you to invest, let's say $10,000, all of a sudden there might be a lot of you that might have to think about that for weeks, if not months, to say, hey, is it really worth that much? Will I get that much value out of it? Do I really want this? Will it really bring a lot of value to my life? Is it really worth it? It's usually not an instant thing. I mean, very few people, when they buy a car, let's say, say, oh, I'm going to walk down to a dealership, and the first car that I look at, I'm going to buy without doing any research or anything at all. Some people are like that, but the majority are not. Most, kind of have, first do some research online. They're like, oh, well, I like what this car looks like, I like what that one looks like. Then they look at like reviews, and they're like, oh, well, this one has like very bad reviews, this one has some good ones, but here's the pros and cons. And then they go down to the dealership, and then they test drive some, and then they're like, well, I really like how the seat feels in this one, but I don't like how this one's missing some cup holders. I like how this one has some extra trunk space. And they debate for a long time in their heads, what the best deal would be for them. So, and that's, the opposite of what an impulse buy is. Like, an impulse buy is, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, there's a bottle of water for $1, there's a candy bar for $1, I'm going to get it because I'm hungry. You don't think, well, is this dollar really spent? Do I want this bar versus another? Do I want this brand of water versus another? You just buy it because you're thirsty, and it's basically an impulse buy. So for any kind of impulse buying price, you'll typically want to optimize for sales, because you'll get a lot more of them faster. If you're selling like a $5 item, you're more likely to get a lot of $5 sales, versus if you're selling like a $1,000 item, unless you have a massive budget, you're not about to get like, hundreds of buyers at $1,000 plus each overnight. So that's why for really expensive items or for lower budgets, you'll want to optimize for leads, especially at first. And only after a while once you get some sales, you want to switch to basically optimize for sales in that case right there. And the more sales you have, the better. But I mean, even if you have like 5 or 10 sales to start with, you can start to optimize for sales. But if you have a budget where, like, let's say you might get 1 sale a month, it is very hard to optimize for that. And then the optimization could be way off because like Facebook can't say, oh, I got this 1 sale, so therefore this is my ideal prospect. He might just be an outlier. Like you don't really know. So optimize for kind of the cheaper conversions first, then go from there. And never assume that you know your target audience perfectly, as you might be way off even on things like the age, the gender, and so forth. And I've seen this in like a lot of niches. And like one of the niches that I was in at first, that I started in years and years ago, was the diamond ring niche. And if you're looking to buy an engagement ring, who do you think your target market is? Let's see what you guys say. All right, looks like most of you are saying, a guy essentially. That's typically what people would think. But what I found was, even though there were a decent amount of guys and stuff, you oftentimes would get a lot of women that were looking to like basically get their own ring, or were looking to get some info on it. And it's something that you would have never probably assumed to start with. Or another example, we sold in the past what I basically call like a bumper ball, which is like a giant inflatable ball that you put your body inside and your arms and legs stick out. And the whole point is you run into like another person or whatever, and like you knock each other over, and looks really fun if you're not like terribly old. So like you think, who would be your target market in that? So you thought, okay, well, probably, I mean, people that are teens or, in their 20s, maybe even in their 30s might like that. Maybe even some that are like 30 to 40s that could still play in it, but also get it for their kids, where it's one of those things that you get it for your kid, but secretly, you use it yourself too. So I thought, hey, that would be probably what we assumed our target market would be right there. But what we found was it usually was the much older males that were getting it, like ones that like over 65. And at first it didn't make a ton of sense. Like, how could a guy who's like 70, why would he buy like a bumper ball? And, because clearly, I mean, I'm sure there's some that are 70 that could run around and bump into stuff and be fine. But you're thinking at that age, you're super likely to get hurt if you're like running full speed and smacking into stuff and rolling all over, right? Probably doesn't sound like a ton of fun to them. But what we found out was a lot of them were actually buying for their grandkids. Okay, so it wasn't the parents buying for their kids, it was the grandparents buying for the grandkids. And they oftentimes would actually buy several at once, because they might have like a few grandkids, and they might think, hey, they might really, really love this. So they'd buy like a few right there. And that was the best prospect right there, even though initially you'd think, hey, no one this old would ever be interested in this, but they were. So never assume. And I've seen this like even among like top Facebook ad experts and stuff. A lot of them tend to assume too much. Like they tend to assume that if like this is a major assumption that I've seen guys mess up on. They assume that, let's say if you're into internet marketing, they assume that you have to be like in your 30s or maybe your 40s, because they think, hey, if you're too old, you're probably not into the internet stuff, and yada. And they're basing it on their own assumptions, when in reality, oftentimes the older crowd was more likely to be into it because they either were like looking for like a side job, or they had a lot of free time, they want to do some stuff on the side, or whatever the reason might be. You'll likely never know exactly. The market that they thought was their main audience was actually the complete opposite. It was not their main audience at all, and they were wasting tons and tons of money trying to go after an audience that wasn't their market. So let the data speak for itself, and let automated ads help you analyze your audience. So moving on from that, we're going to jump into ad tips and creatives. And this is where in just a bit I'll do a live demo of how to do some stuff, how to easily edit ads, and I'll play around and show off some of the templates and stuff. So ads are often way overlooked despite how they can make a difference between a winning or a losing campaign. Impulse purchases, free content, freebies, and giveaways are a huge draw. Giveaways are especially great for new offers or to test the market or the niche out to start with. Here's why. Everyone loves free stuff, especially giveaways or a chance to win some large free stuff. So the amount of effort it takes to sign up for like a giveaway isn't all that high. So you're lowering the barrier of entry. They don't have to read like pages and pages of content. They don't have to do squat other than just usually enter their email to be entered into a contest. So usually the click cost and the lead cost is a lot less. So you can see if there's an interest. And to give you an example, if you have like, let's say a free report, in a lot of niches, you might find, your lead cost might be $3 to $8 per lead for a freebie. If you're lucky, you might find some that are less. And I'm basically talking within like the US and UK and stuff like that. Obviously, if you go elsewhere, you can get stuff for a lot less. But if you go on the giveaway route, you might get leads for like less than 50 cents with the exact same traffic, basically targeting the exact same people. And that's just a great way to get those leads, and then you can sell them anything you want afterwards or do anything you want with them after. But if you're in a niche and you do like a pretty good giveaway and you find that you can't get leads for like less than like $1 or so, or let's say your lead cost is like super expensive, that basically tells you, well, unless your giveaway really sucks, and you can try a couple just to start with, but unless it really sucks, that's a pretty good indicator that the market just might not be a good one. So instead of like creating a product or having like a ton of work go into like a free report, or like instead of listing a product for sale and stuff like that, it can give you an idea of what it would be like. Like for instance, if you're selling I don't know, like let's say you're selling don't know, off the top of my head, let's say you want to sell a training course on how to improve your tennis game. Okay, instead of like developing a course on that, going through all that work, making the sales page, you can do a giveaway that maybe is like, hey, you'll give the latest racket by Wilson or Prince or Babolat or whatever, whatever the latest one is. You can show like a picture of that. You can give that away in a giveaway, like have like a contest. And if you find that you get like cheap clicks and leads, that's like, hey, maybe the tennis niche is pretty good. But if you find, hey, it's like a few dollars to get a lead there, even, that basically tells you that if it costs a few dollars to get a lead for a giveaway, it's going to cost you a heck of a lot more to get them to try to pay you anything, or to get them to basically look at some free info. So that's just a little trick right there. So you want to use these things like impulse purchases and giveaways and freebies and free content and such as a way to basically bait your prospects into your funnels. And we'll basically talk a lot more about that next week, including how to make like a lot of money off of these leads and stuff. But that's like a whole other call by itself. So we'll wait to basically cover more of that next week. But your ad image and the text must stand out and must get their attention within a second or two to stand any chance. So obviously the giveaways and all that give you a larger chance of like getting attention, but even so, you want to have your ad image and the text really stand out and get their attention super fast. Now on Facebook, as some of you probably know, and some might not, but you will now, there is a text rule. So on any image you have on your ad, Facebook often does not allow you to use more than basically 20% of your ad image for the text. So the rule of thumb is to try to avoid that. Now, it doesn't always work, and they're kind of like, it's a rule, but it's not necessarily set in stone. But basically, the less text you use, the more they like you, typically. But sometimes we find that having like a small amount of text can actually help you, even though Facebook claims that they don't like that as much. So you want to make sure you don't have an ad that's like purely all text and whatnot. And even like sometimes if you just like upload a plain image with no text, sometimes you'll accidentally set off a filter that says you have more text. So don't worry a ton about that. If that happens, just resubmit or essentially write them back and say, hey, there's far less than this amount of text here. Let me know if that was a mistake. Now, on that note, plain images can work well, but you absolutely need to have a short, attention-grabbing title and text description, especially if you have a plain ad or like a plain ad image with no text on it. Make sure that the text that appears above and below the image is super good and attention-grabbing, and I'll give some examples off in just a minute right here. If you have a free offer or a huge discount, make that stand out. You can use basically different colored text as well as like red or blue or like it's essentially like super bright arrows and stuff to kind of point at the fact that it is free. And I'll show off an example of that in a few minutes as well. So you want to make it like clearly pop that it's free or like a discount offer or whatnot, as that can grab a lot of attention. In fact, I found that like even basically adding like a few arrows can actually decrease the ad cost a decent amount by just a simple fix. Like if you change nothing else on the ad itself and just add like a few arrows, that can often help a great deal right there. You also want to make sure that the first line of your text description and headline sum up your entire offer. And I'll have a screenshot showing like exactly what I'm talking about in just a second here. But a lot of times a mistake I see is like people use the text boxes, which is basically the text that shows up usually above the ad itself, to like go into like massive detail about what their offer is. And it's confusing and complicated. And unless you're really into it, people just like glance over it. So you want to make sure that the first line sums up the entire offer and it gives them a reason, enough to pay attention and to click. If you can't do that, if you can't sum up your entire offer in one line, you're either overthinking or you have a bad offer. So that's definitely something you want to keep in mind right there. You also want to have your link appear somewhere within the text box. And once again, in a second, I'll show off exactly what I mean here. So if you're like, well, what text box are you talking about? I'll show that off in just a second. This will get more clicks, and I'll show an example of that. So oftentimes people don't have any link in the text box. They just tell Facebook what their link is, and if someone clicks the get more info button, that obviously goes to your link either way. But by adding the link to your text box, you'll often get even more or a much higher click-through rate, which can of course decrease your ad costs and such right there. And keep in mind that usually eyes typically go from left to right, especially in basically like the English language and most Western-based languages. So make the left text or the left image especially stand out, because that's usually the first thing that they'll see right there. Short, precise text oftentimes beats longer, more explain text. And I'll share an example of that in one of the templates in just a bit. So I actually had a simple image where I had a picture of the product on the right side, and then on the left side I had two different examples. One just said free, didn't say free product or free anything, just said free. Then the second one, and keep in mind it can say more than free, like it can say free or just free whatever product. Whereas the second one was like I would say free, and then I'd say the product, and then I'd give like a description of the product. That was like probably, it was just like a sentence or a sentence and a half long. And I thought, well, if people want free stuff, they probably want to know exactly, what it is that's free, or like read up on exactly what it is. Even though there's like a picture of it, I'd assume that they want to have like a sentence or so on what that is. What I found was the shorter stuff would typically win. So even just having the word free with no other text around it, just saying free, would reduce your ad costs. Or having free followed by the name of the product and almost nothing else would almost always beat the one that had like this sentence or two sentence explanation of what it was in the ad image itself. And I'll show off the template of that in just a bit right there. So short and precise tends to win the day, I find. Another tip, and again, I'll share a screenshot of some of this in just a bit. I'll show some live examples as well. So another tip right here is that you absolutely want to respond to a comments not only promptly, but you want to hide the negative comments instead of deleting them. Now with that, I don't just mean hide them and never address an issue. If someone says like, you know, like, hey, you know, I haven't received my product. You don't want to just like hide that and not do squat. You want to address it. You know, you want to write the person back and say, you know, hey, it looks like you just you know got this 2 days ago. The shipping can take up to a week. You know, blah blah. You know, you want to promptly address that. But what you'll find is if you leave a lot of negative comments out there, people always assume the worst. So if they read anything bad, especially if you don't reply to it, they tend to think that you're a scam or that you're trying to steal a credit card or you know all this crazy stuff. And to give you an idea, there's a lot of people on Facebook that aren't necessarily the brightest, where they'll assume that, hey, I saw a Facebook ad from you here, but a week ago or a month ago, I had another Facebook ad of something completely different. So therefore, they think you must be the same company, even though they're selling two completely different things. Like Sean and I have never sold bean bags or glasses, but we have actually people complaining, saying that you know we're scammers because we never sent their glasses. We you know basically took their money, but we never shipped out the sunglasses, or we took their money and we never sent them the beanbag. And it's like, we've never sold a beanbag. We've never sold sunglasses. That's not us. You're probably confusing us with someone else. And you think that would solve it, but then they'd write back saying, no, you guys are scamming. I know you are. You probably changed your business name. You probably changed this. And the problem is, like, even though a rational person would know, like, hey, you know, the person probably has the wrong business here. When people see that, they tend to basically think like, oh, maybe she's, you know, maybe he or she is telling the truth. These people might be scamming, selling junk. So you want to make sure to hide that, you know, as well. The other thing is, if you delete a comment, sometimes that can send up some red flags if you did delete too many. So instead, just hide them. There's a little option where if you click on the comment, you can either hide or delete. So make sure to hide. You also want to make sure in the replies that you do, not only be like super helpful, but try to be funny if you can. I found that if you can add some humor into the replies, you can actually reduce your ad costs because you're more likely to get buyers. People tend to trust you more if you're being funny. If you give like copy and paste answers, that's basically better than nothing. But if you're being funny, you sound more human and they can relate to you more. I've actually done this a lot where I've actually had comments back of lots of people saying that they bought because of the comments that I wrote back. And it can be stuff like any way you can be funny is fine. Like let's say you sell, you know, like one is we sold a certain product and someone asked if their saber-toothed cat would, or if it would basically stand up to their saber-toothed cat, and they clearly were joking about, you know, their own cat probably being like super aggressive and biting stuff and, you know, blah blah and tearing stuff apart. So instead of just saying, you know, yes, this should stand up to a cat's just fine, I would say a comment like saying like, well, we have yet to be able to actually capture a live saber-toothed tiger to actually test this with, but hypothetically we believe that it should withstand you know wear and tear from that. But having said that, if you can send us, an actual picture of your saber-tooth tiger next to, our product, we'll happily send you some freebies, just so we can add that into our marketing, that it can withstand a saber-tooth tiger. So that by itself got like hundreds of likes and loves, and like lots of people saying like lots of comments back, and they thought it was hilarious that like essentially a business took the time to basically joke back. Or if someone like let's say someone writes back saying, hey, are you a scammer? You can write back, instead of just saying no, we're a legit business. You can write back saying, hey, no, we're a legit business. We've been around a long time, but I have a question for you. Have you ever asked that and gotten a place to say, yes, I'm a scammer? And then have like a little smiley face, like little things like that. People love that because it makes you look more human, basically. So anywhere where you can add some humor can really actually help increase your sales, and it's kind of fun at the same time to play around with that right there. Now, here's an example of like the text boxes and stuff I was talking about. So when you make an ad in Facebook, you see some stuff like this right here. Like you see some text, or you see like a text box like you see right there, which goes essentially above the ad itself. So if you do like a giveaway, you want to make sure that the first line sums up the entire thing. So like if I was doing a giveaway, what would the first line be? It'd probably be something like this right here. Free whatever giveaway, enter to win a free, blah blah blah. And then after you have that sentence by itself, then what I often do, and this is like a cool trick, and then this is like a template that we'll actually pass on to you guys. Instead of giving away just one thing where someone has a chance of winning, I like to make sure that everyone wins at least something. So like you might, let's say you have like, let's say you have a giveaway on, like a tennis racket. You might say, hey, free Wilson, free Wilson, blah, 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 racket, giveaway, enter to win a chance to win, this, blah, blah. And then say, just for entering, you'll also automatically get a free report on how to increase your serve speed, or you'll get, a free whatever product, just basically cover the shipping and handling, or whatever it might be right there. So people not only get a chance to win, but everyone wins at least something. And that basically gives you a chance to not only like incentivize more people to sign up, but especially if you do like free plus shipping or like a discount deal or something like that, it can actually turn those freebie guys into actual buyers too. And then after you say that, you can have just a super short description of what the product itself is, and what your justification is for having, let's say the contest, which might be to spread the word, on your product or whatever that might be right there. And you can basically enter the benefits and features and stuff there. And then you want to have the link in the text box as well, which you see at the very, very bottom, kind of right here, that can actually increase your click-through rate. Then for the headline, you want to make sure that, again, that sums up the entire thing. So you want to make sure that if someone just glances at that for a second, they clearly know what it is. So in this case, we'd say win a free whatever product and get a free, whatever, just for entering. So that sums up the entire thing, super, super easy. And you don't have to read more info. Like you don't have to read essentially a paragraph of explanation to know what you're signing up for. And that tends to work the best right there. And I'll send this off as like a template. So you guys will actually get a file of like not only the text templates, you also get the ad templates or the ad graphic templates as well. So you don't have to worry about remembering that. So as far as some other tips and stuff for your ad image sizes, I oftentimes as a default will use basically 1200 by 628 pixels as a default. You can always resize these and adjust them depending upon what kind of ad you would do and whatnot. But a cool resource for basically editing ads I find is canva.com, which is free to mostly free. And what I mean by that, this allows you to easily edit images as well as make new ones from scratch and such. And you can make a bunch of them for free. And then you can also, there's like certain graphics or images and stuff that you can add, which are free, and then there's certain ones that are like $1. So if you want to have it be entirely free, you can. If you want to use like a certain ad image that is not free, it's only like $1 or so. So you can make them like very, very cheaply, and it's fairly easy. And I'll show off a demo of that. Another tool that I like for easy editing is Snagit. So you can do like screenshots. You can basically edit stuff. You can add like little text bubbles. So I find that's like super easy to use as well. And virtually like any other, basically like any kind of graphic editor or any kind of image editor is likely just fine as long as you follow like the sizing rules and stuff there. So I'll pause the screen for a second as I go to canva.com, which again, is free to sign up. If you just go to canva.com, you can register for free. And I'll show off a handful of, the templates, which I'll actually give you a file. Once we have the replay of this up within a day, you'll have a link to the ad images as well as the text files. So you have some templates that you can use and stuff right there, but I'll show off some right here. So I'm just gonna pause this for a second as I show you how you can easily make your own ads and some formats that can work really, really well. All right, so I'm just gonna pause the screen for a second. And gonna bring up this right here. All right, so when you go to canva.com, you'll see something like this right here. If you don't have an account there, obviously you'll want to create one first. And if you want to start from scratch, I'll show one from scratch, and then we'll show off some, the templates and stuff. Usually for Facebook ads, I usually start with 1200 by 628 or so, and that's essentially pixels. Then you go to a screen like this right here, and you can do anything you want. Like if you want to start with like, it's essentially a blank screen, you can right there. If you want to change like the background to like anything you want, like if you just click right here, you can see it changes the background. Again, you can do anything you want right there. So yeah, so you can do that. Then if you want to create, like, let's say you want to add some text, you can click add a heading. And of course, that's horrible font color. So again, you can change it all right here. And it's easy to like center and do all that stuff. Easy to change like the sizes and all that. I would not recommend like a black background or anything like that. It's just, an example right here. And you could add in like a, like essentially a product image or anything you want right there. You can also, if you want to load an image of yours, you can just go to upload right here, and you can upload any image you want that you just essentially drag and resize easily right there. If you also want to use like let's say like this guy, like if you want to add like an arrow, you can easily like do that. You can also click here to rotate that. So all sorts of crazy stuff that you can do super easy. If you want to add like an image, like let's say we want like a monkey, I don't know, or let's say we want to do like a tennis one. I don't know why we'd want a monkey, but we could do that. And you see there's like free as well as paid ones here. So you see there's a lot that are free, a lot that are paid. Here's a free one right here. And of course we can resize it. And you can make like any kind of image you want pretty easily and whatnot. So that's how you'd use that. And of course, if you use like one that's like $1, like let's say you want to use this one right here, and let's say you want to have it be like you know, let's say it's how to increase your forehand speed or anything like that. If you wanted to use this right here, the second you download it, it would basically ask you to essentially pay, and in this case, it'd be only $1 for that whole thing. And of course, you could resize and do whatever you want. You can also like add like, let's say you want to add a hat on that guy. You can do like, you know, crazy stuff as well. That's obviously a huge hat, but you get the idea. You know, you can do anything, you know, that you want. You can, you know, so it's super easy. But now I'll kind of move on to some of the template designs and stuff that we have and why I do stuff the way I do. So this is just showing you how you can easily edit and make your own or do whatever you want. I'll show off a handful of the templates that you'll have access to and why they work well. So here's one right here, which is just this a simple template right here, which is just win a free product, and you basically just change essentially product to be whatever you want to give away. And then if you want to optionally give something free to like everyone, you can say everyone automatically gets a free whatever just for entering. Now, of course, you know, you don't have to basically copy this word for word. This is just an example right here. And this, I just have like a placeholder right here. This is where you would basically just add whatever kind of graphic you have of the actual product. Like if you were giving away a racket, you'd have a picture of the actual racket. If you were giving away, like, I don't know, let's say a computer, you'd have a picture of the computer right there. So simple ad, but very effective, because it's like right there, what's the first thing you see? You see win a free whatever. Like if you're scrolling through really fast, free instantly pops out. That's why I have free not only in all caps, but also red, because it immediately essentially stands out. And that's kind of what you want to do. So like if you're scrolling through, you know, like a Facebook feed, you'll instantly see that it's free. And that's why those can get really cheap clicks and leads. And if you have like some kind of offer immediately after, like a free offer or free plus shipping, followed by like maybe a couple other upsells and stuff, you can turn those free leads into sales. And this can be highly effective to not only quickly build a list in almost any niche. So like if you want to go into any niche, make a giveaway. And I mean, you'll probably be shocked at how quickly you can build a list. Like, you know, if you want to build a list of like, you know, like 100 leads overnight, if you have like even like a $50 budget, you'll have probably 100 leads or more overnight in most niches, just by basically doing that. And you can monetize all those leads right there. So that's essentially a template that you'll get for free right there. Of course, you can change it to anything you want. Doesn't have to be like terribly fancy. Again, this works insanely well. Another one that worked really well, and you'll laugh at how simple this is right here, because it really is that simple. If, let's say, and this one works not only for like usually more for like a free plus shipping, or even for like if like let's say you have some kind of like a free offer or like a free report or anything like that, but it works exceptionally well for like free plus shipping, is to just have essentially a picture of the product right here, and then without any explanation, just having either the word free or free whatever product, like don't have a long explanation of it or anything, or if it's just like a discount, you know, you can say, you know, half off, or if it's super cheap. I've also had a handful of ads that have said only $1 or only $5 work really well, where that's the only text they'll have right there is like free or only $1 or only $5, and that stands out and works really well. And you know, again, you might laugh at that and say, wow, you know, like this is way easier than what a lot of people say, because it is. It doesn't have to be terribly hard. Now, you can take the exact same thing right here and do anything you want with it. Like here's like another template right here, virtually the exact same one, except instead of just having free, you have a short, somewhat of like a catchy message. Like let's say let's say you have either like a blog post or a free report on how someone could possibly double their sales. Like let's say you have a case study of that. You can have a short, catchy message of how I doubled my sales with 10 minutes of work. Or like let's say you're selling Facebook ad management or something along those lines. You could have like a catchy message like how I reduced my lead cost by 90% with this one trick. And that instantly stands out. I mean, you can't help but read whatever the message is right there, especially with the arrows right here. And it gets a lot of attention and gets a pretty good click-through rate and stuff right there. And what you can do is, I mean, not only can you use these templates as like basically a basis to do whatever you want with, you can also upload them as well. So all that you would basically have to do, you just go to upload right here, and then you would upload the one in question. And then, obviously if you had a new one, you just want to make sure to, resize it to fit what you made as your size. And you can start with that right there. And if you want to change the image out, you can change that with whatever you want right there. So all super easy to mess around with as well. And also what's really neat is once you make one, so if you make, let's say a single ad, you can go to, let's see if I remember where this was. Yep. If you go to your designs, you'll see a list of like all sorts of essentially the ads or the graphics that you made. And when you click them, it will essentially pop up like this, and you can choose to basically either essentially change or basically edit the one right here, or you can choose to use it as a template, and it will basically clone it, and you can change anything you want around as well. So you can leave the original one as is. So that's super easy to kind of mess around with and play around with right there, and you'll get access to the templates. And also we have, like you saw the screenshot of like the different text that you can have on the Facebook side that basically appears above and below the actual ad graphic itself. You'll have like a template or a few of those as well that you can use to start with, regardless if you have like a free plus shipping offer or a or like a giveaway, or if you're selling like a coaching offer, like a high-end offer, or you're trying to send them to like let's say like a consultation. There's a few different templates that you can use right there to help with that. So hopefully that kind of shows you how easy this stuff is to do right there. And all you have to do once you make an image, you just click on the download, and I'll just go right here actually. So once you're basically done right here, you just click on the download, and it will download it for free. If you use like, let's say you use like a certain like a certain graphic here that's like $1, it will then basically prompt you to check out first before you can download it. If you used something that's not free, but like they're all like either free or basically $1, and it will essentially tell you right here what that is. So hopefully that all makes sense. Just gonna pause my screen for a second as I go back to the PowerPoint right here. All right, so if you guys have any questions or any suggested features or anything like that, let us know. And as a reminder, guys, next week you'll get access to some very, very, very cool free software to help you basically plan out and growing your business and funnels, which basically kind of goes with our training next week, and how to easily increase your sales even without extra buyers. So you'll see how to easily do that, and you'll see some like behind the scenes models of what we do to increase our own sales. Even if you have like a free offer or free plus shipping, you'll see how to make a lot more from those right there. Or any model that you have will basically do some hands-on essentially training and examples we can maybe even take some examples from you guys as well to show how we would, increase your sales, not only through like Facebook ads, but through like any sale that you get anywhere, even like an offline sale and all that as well. So very awesome training next week. So make sure to be here for that and get access to the free software then as well. And of course, as I said, not only will we have the replay of this up within a day, so probably either the end of the day or tomorrow morning, you'll also have a link to the templates and the text and the images and all that next to the replay as well in the members area. So you'll get access to all that. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us at support@firstratesupport.com. Or if you have any questions here in the chat, you can feel free to say that as well. In fact, I'll just open the chat box right now in case any of you have any questions. And Sean, if you've seen any questions like that while I've been talking, feel free to chime in as well. Okay, let's see here. All right. So Jim asked a question here on a growth rule set. So he basically asked like how fast it would essentially grow the budget. It depends what you say in the rule. So the default one we have basically checks every day. You could basically change it to check every 15 minutes or anything that you want. But you could say like, hey, if let's say you have an ad budget of $10 a day, and let's say if something's winning, you want to increase that by 50%. If it checks like once a day, then say, hey, at the end of the day, it would basically grow that budget or clone that ad set, and it would grow the budget by 50%, and you'd be at $15 a day. And then the next day, if it's still winning, it would basically grow that by an additional 50%. But if you said you want a maximum budget of, let's say, $30, after like 3 days or so, would say, hey, we can't actually increase your budget without exceeding your limit. So it would not increase your budget, but it would send you an email saying, hey, we couldn't increase your budget because it'd be over the limit that you set right there. So all right.
Yeah, so Brian, related to that, there was the question of if I set my budget cap at $75, for example, inside of automated ads, but I started my ad at $15 in Facebook, does Facebook know that I'm willing to spend $75, and so they can, they're going to like try to spend more money than the 15 cap that's set on the actual ad set or campaign? And the answer is no. The rules and everything and the caps you set up in automated ads do not get shared with Facebook. They only get, so the budget would only increase when the rule says, hey, this ad is doing well, let's increase the budget.
Yeah, and
but it wouldn't just go up because you're like, hey, Facebook would like to take more of your money, which they would.
Yeah, and that's one of the really nice things about the automated ads here is that any rule that you say, Facebook would not know what you're actually wanting to do. Whereas Facebook, like almost any business, if you were to do like, let's say, manual bidding, and which is more of like an advanced thing, and let's say on Facebook's end, you say, hey, I'm willing to pay up to this, they'll oftentimes do what they can to get, obviously more money from you. Whereas this is a way where, you can say, hey, my actual target is this, but you don't want to necessarily share that with Facebook. All right, here's a good one from a Bryant. This was actually in response to one of the questions. He was saying, how can you scale rapidly without crashing your cost per clicks. And that's actually a great one there. And we can do some future training on that as well, but there's actually a few things that you can do. First, you want to make sure that the market you're going after is broad enough. If you're too narrow, if you do the stuff that we basically talked about earlier in this call, where you basically target too narrowly, it can increase your click costs a lot. But if you go more broad, it can oftentimes decrease that click cost a lot. And on top of that, you know, like if you have a market that's like a couple million, you're more likely to be able to get essentially cheaper clicks and all that right there. You also want to make sure like some of the methods that we have, like if you do like a giveaway, that gets like super cheap clicks, even on like a super large scale. Or if you have like a blog post that you send, you know, those ads to, or like a news piece, you can get super cheap clicks that way. But usually I find what works best is if you have enough buyers, create a lookalike audience, and then focus mostly on that and less on the targeting side. That tends to like really allow me to get oftentimes like cheap clicks on a larger scale. And on that as well, instead of just increasing the budgets on any ad campaign, if you're looking to spend like a ton of money, like let's say you have a budget of like, you know, over $1,000 a day or over a few thousand a day, what I like to often do in that case is if I have, let's say, 30 ad sets going, and let's say, you know, the total budget for that day, let's say, is like $500, and I say, hey, I want to increase this to $3,000 and see how that goes. What I'll do in that case is I'll take a handful of my best ad sets, I'll clone those, and then from there, I'll basically give each of those a much larger budget. Like let's say $500 a day each one. Then I'll see how those go after like a half day or like a day or so. And you can use the automated ads, you know, rule sets to kind of help you monitor those and, you know, adjust those. Where if it's like crazy, you know, expensive right off the bat, you can basically pause those pretty fast. Whereas if it shows any life, you can kind of keep those running, and usually within like 2 days, you should start to see it like normalize a little bit. You know, and that's assuming you have like an impulse purchase price and like a larger budget. And then, you know, again, you can use the rule sets to basically monitor that and basically adjust that as so. And you might like, you know, if you were to test like 5 new higher ad spend, you know, ad sets, you know, in like a day, you might find that of the 5, not all 5 of those might win, but let's say you find like 2 or 3 of those do win, you know, they can automatically pause the losers. So by day 2 or day 3, you're left with the winners at a much higher ad spend than prior. All right. All right. All right. So last question I see right here. If you have an ad that's doing well, essentially the person's asking if they need to duplicate the ad, or if automated ads can basically do it, or if the software just essentially tells them to. So if you want, automated ads can actually duplicate it completely for you if you want. So that's perfectly fine, and it can do that. Or if you want it just to alert you to say, hey, you should duplicate this, you can have it do that as well. So it's up to you if you want it to basically take a certain action, or if you want it to actually duplicate the ad set itself, or if you want it to increase the ad set budget, or if you want it to basically pause an ad set. Any of those actions you can do, including just, you know, an email out if you just want to be alerted. Like that's all fine, and that's all easily doable within there. And if you have any further questions on that, like if you're not sure on one, just feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to help. So with that, we're a bit past the hour here, so we'll wrap it up. But if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to us at support@firstratesupport.com, and we'll be happy to get back to you really fast. So And as always, let us know if there's any features or any training or anything that you think would be super useful to know, and we'll try to add that stuff in the future and make sure you get whatever info you need. So with that, hope you guys all have a great rest of the week, and make sure you stop by our call next week, where we'll be actually giving out some free software that we think you guys will really love. In fact, it's one of my favorite little things to play around with. So yeah, hopefully you will enjoy that and get some value there. So with that, have a great week, and we'll talk to you guys later. Take care.